Welcome to our Recognition and Rewards Festival.
It's great to be part of this Recognition and Rewards Day, because I feel it's so important that we have a kind of multi-dimensional view of what it means to be active in academia. I think for a long time, we had a very narrow view of success, our definition of success. I think the various facets of a life in education, of culture, and research have expanded, and I think, well, both of you, of course, have been really in the lead of showing that there are many different tasks and also opportunities, but also different paths for an academic career. And now I think obviously we want to kind of build a house that has enough room and views to attract a maximum amount of diverse talent. And there's so many different challenges that we are confronted with. We need these kind of new perspectives of what it means to be in academia. And I think I'm very proud, actually, that the Netherlands is also in the lead of that discussion, which is a worldwide discussion. And I think it's very appropriate to our country, which always has been very forward-looking. If there's one thing that comes with this position, is that you have a different perspective. You look at, in some sense, the grand total, the collective. And I think actually this is exactly why we need this discussion. There are many, many different paths in academia, but we have to look at the whole. And we have to see how can we excel as a community. And I think it's a little bit more like looking at the full orchestra than all the different instruments. And in particular, I think that the younger generations who are, will have to live in that house for a much longer time and have to own it. Yeah. That they look at the architecture and say, wait a moment, we can do this smarter and more effective. And I think we can show that there are paradoxes, and there are voices who say, well, you can't have both. You can't excel in science and at the same time, be a safe environment, engage a larger public, be aware of the great challenges and the things that are asked from society. Mm-hmm. I think, by showing, being exhibit A, that this can be done. I think it will be a very powerful message to the rest of the world. So I'd be very proud to see this as an export product in the academic world.
I think the big difference is that it is actually everywhere in Europe. So people who say this is a typically Dutch thing, that's not completely true. We will later this afternoon discuss that a little bit more in detail. But the issue is that we are going a little bit faster maybe than others, and that makes people nervous. But that's also good to be fast, because then you can actually determine what's happening and people are looking at you. So I think a lot of progress has been made over the past few years. For me, if you also would ask, well, where do we need to improve? I think that's actually in two things. We need, even better than we do now, to communicate what we really mean, because there's so many fears and people who are nervous and have misunderstandings, mm-hmm. and we really need to make clear to all of them what we want to achieve by this, and that it should not be a threat mm-hmm. to existing scientists who are now successful, but it's actually an opportunity for the wider scientific community, and our minister said exactly the same. And the other thing is, how do we translate these ideas and these discussions that we have into concrete actions?
Yeah. Actually, I think it's very good, Rianne, that you set out at the beginning that even within this steering group, we have the fierce and courageous discussions. Because if you want to do something like this, you have to be aware of all aspects and consequences. Well, the community of the Royal Netherlands Academy actually also includes groups like the Young Academy. So even within the Academy, there are very different views, because on the whole, I think there's a lot of support for ways of thinking about solving the structural problems in academia that we have in the Netherlands. The minister said it. They exist abroad. They include things like equity and fairness and diversity and inclusion, all those things. Work pressure everywhere. There's a shortage of money. We are not going to fix that with this program, but we need to acknowledge it. But there's also a large constituency in the academy who are concerned about research, pure research, the kind of research that we're really good at, that has brought the members of the academy to the positions where they are now. And I find that very understandable, and it is incredibly important that we are clear about the fact that we probably started with all those other aspects that weren't so central, maybe the teaching and the leadership and the teamwork. But that this is also about research, and that, of course, we would be insane if we gave up our ambitions of producing top-notch, internationally recognized research. The question is, how do you best achieve that goal?
But that's the biggest myth, isn't it?
I think
that's one
that
of the
is
myths
probably,
that recognition and rewards would make us a marginalized country where research is something for the average. That's
no one wants that.
No one wants that.
No one wants
Absolutely
that.
not.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. That is indeed. I hope that after today we'll be able to get that myth really off the table, because that really hampers also the open discussion that we need to have to move forward.
I absolutely agree with that. And the misunderstanding may be that this is coming instead of what we had. And it's not coming instead of what we had. We will keep what we had, but we are actually broaden it a little bit.
Exactly.
And make it a little bit more diverse and a little bit more accessible also for people who are not in the current system extremely successful, and that's something else as replacing it by something.
Yeah, it's a theory of inclusivity and not of exclusion.
But then people also ask, but what does that mean for my promotion?
Well,
because
can I take that opportunity?
Yeah,
because
please,
I
and then
fully
I go
agree
to
with
you,
that.
Jeroen.
To clarify a little bit something about recognition and rewards. So it is totally true that a university as an employer or as a place where people work look at the entirety of research, education, patient care, leadership, etc. But as NWO, and maybe as the academy, but Ineke can speak for herself, we are looking at research. And if we are going to judge an application for research, we look only at research. We're not looking at education, we're not looking at patient care and all these other things. We are plainly just looking at research. So recognition and rewards for research is just a part of a broader picture of recognition and rewards for universities. But if I limit myself now to research, we also think we need to have a broader view than just counting publications, which we did in the past, and that was it. No, we also want to look at the quality of the publications. What does it contribute to a field? Is there a connection to open science? What have you done to communicate your science findings? Are you working together with others? These things are also important, and that is recognition and rewards for research, and that is slightly different than recognition and rewards for universities or academic institutions. And people need to understand that, because now they're afraid that, oh, I apply for a talent scholarship at NWO and suddenly my teaching is important. It is not.
But what is important, Marcel, is that if you work also as a medical specialist and you do 70% medical care and you don't have the 100 publications, but you have maybe less, but they're of top quality, that now you would also have a chance at NWO to get a grant.
I fully agree.
Because that's, I think, what people would like to hear as well, that it's not the quantity, it's indeed the contribution. We look at the quality, and there's still discussions on how we will do that then in combination also with the quantitative assessments, but to relieve the pressure on those that have so many other tasks, but still be able to do partly research with also funding from NWO. Is that something you would say yes to? That would have that effect?
You always have to take into account not only what people have achieved in terms of their research, but also in how much time. And if they have done so in only 20% of their working time because they had other things to do, that also counts. But we're still looking only at
exactly. No, I think that's a very good clarification, because otherwise not so much would change for those people that are very supportive of this movement.
But I actually think that even now, before the full implementation, when you're applying with NWO, you have to say how many months of research time you've had. So you do this calculation. That's not new. And maybe it's a better instruction to the panels that you need to really weigh that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important.
Instruction to the panels is absolutely something that we have been discussing before I left, at least. It is a new way of assessing, absolutely.
And may I maybe put a different question also in the group here? What you sometimes hear when we talk about the concerns is that the funding issue of universities, and we are getting more funding in the coming period. Maybe Marcel will be able to say a little bit more about that. But that the funding restraints will influence the success of recognition and reward, and that if we don't solve that structurally, then recognition and reward will really not have the results that we're aiming for. And that's a widespread concern that I always get at every table that I'm talking about this topic. Do you recognize that, Marcel?
Yeah, I think every transformation is always difficult if there is a shortage of money. Because then it is much easier when there is a little bit of extra money, because that will give you the room and to change things and keep everybody comfortable and relaxed, that it's not taken away from them. And we are in the fortunate circumstances that in the next 10 years, there will be heavily invested into research. If you look at the new agreement of our new government, whatever you think of it, the amount of money that is going to research is massive. It has never been better in many previous years. And of course, we need to consult with each other how we are going to spend that money. But actually, if you just put a step back and look at it, there is much more money for research. So we can actually make these changes in the next few years without being too much worried that people will suffer or that money will be taken away from them.
Okay. And also, I think, so rewards are not always monetary, right? So
absolutely.
just when you think of, let's say, awards, awards don't need to be accompanied by a check of money. They can be recognition of something that you do. So I think the monetary discussion is relevant, but it's not the only thing that we should be thinking about.
No, but what you hear is that, of course, people would like to hear, is it possible to make promotions? For instance, when I'm excellent in education, I still do research, but it's not my main focus. It's more education. Will that create new positions to the higher scales? And will we have funding for that then? Right. And it really depends also sometimes of the department that you're in, because some departments have quite a lot of funding or reserves, and some don't. So will that mean that if you are at the wrong department, that recognition and reward will not apply to you? Yeah. And I think that is a concern that we have to take serious.
And this is, I think, also typically something that you want to discuss at the level of the different institutions. Yeah. We don't have to do a one-size-fits-all model. That would be unwise. Yeah. I think the measures that you take need to be related to the strategic goals of the institution. What do you want to achieve, even within the institution? What does this faculty, this research institute, want to achieve? Which goals does it set for itself? How do you achieve those goals best, and then what is needed in terms of this culture change? So you have to start the right way around, as it were, and that will also give you the support of the group, because they want to achieve their own goals and will help to think about how best to achieve that.
And I think a lot of the reward indeed comes from feeling that what you're doing, that you're respected for that, and also a general culture that the let's say the stairway to becoming a professor is not the only way to get a good career.
Exactly.
So you can also, like in an academic medical center, you can also think of clinical leadership. Be a champion in safety, for instance, in a hospital, or educational leadership. And that can be different pathways and different instruments to help people move forward in their career. But it's mostly a culture change. Because if at the end of the day, only the number of publications or the journals in which you publish is what is counted, then that's where people will go. We've had that monoculture for many years, and it's given some good things, but we have to realize that it also comes with bad sides.
Absolutely.
How is excellence defined in the context of recognition and rewards?
Wow, that's a broad question. How is that for research, Marcel?
So what we want to do, it's a fantastic question, and it's difficult to answer just in a couple of seconds, but let me phrase it so. We want to move away from what Ineke rightfully said is a monoculture, from just counting publications and looking at journal impact factors, and that's it. We want to move away to a much more composite system where you look at research from different angles. And that still means fantastic publications, fantastic journals, I don't care, but most importantly, qualitative, aspects of research. What have you really contributed? Is this new? Is this recognized by the field? Citations, okay with me, but also looking at how do you communicate your findings to a wider audience. And what do you do actually in terms of research leadership? And have you thought about open science and sharing your data with others? So it is actually a wide composite of things instead of just looking at that tiny little thing we've been looking at for decades now.
But one myth, can you still publish in Nature and Science?
Yes, of course. A Nature Science publication is fantastic. Yes. But it's not because it is in Nature of Science, it is because it is a fantastic publication. Yeah. So we need to shift our attention a little bit away from this blindness that I only want to be in the New England Journal of Medicine or Nature and Science. No, I want to do fantastic research. And then you think which is the best journal to publish your results in. Yeah.
So the question was, what is excellence? And the answer is, there isn't going to be one exclusive definition of excellence. Excellence is defined in relation to the goals that a program has set for itself, what is needed for that, and then you want to be excellent on different aspects.
Exactly. I think that's the whole point of recognition and reward. To just break open to widen this definition of excellence a bit, yeah.
But for research, we basically
have
a pretty good idea.
Wow, that's good news.
So the next session is about team science and special questions that relate to team science. So one of the issues that we will discuss is what is a team? But also related to one of the questions that I think came up during the discussion already, how do you measure the quality of a team versus the quality of an individual? Because our current system is actually still evaluating individuals very much. So this is a very timely topic that we are going to discuss with a number of people. Maybe starting with the issue, do you have experience with the formation of teams, and what, in your view, is a good team size?
Thank you very much. Tanya Bondaruk, I'm from the University of Twente, co-chairing our committee on recognition and rewards together with Jennifer Herrick. Well, I must say, thank you, Victor, very much for this contribution. And of course, I share his ideas. But I would like also to add something. Yes, I do have experience with team building. And I must say, in our university, we have started with a strategy. The strategy in Twente is called Shaping 2030. It is oriented towards 2030. And the implementation groups, and one of them is shaping individuals and teams. So actually it is deeply rooted in our strategy there where it all started. So we want to build team science because science is about teamwork. For me, the main characteristic of a team is to have a shared goal. Whether these are 2, 3, 5 or 10 persons, as Victor said, it's another question. But let me start like this.
Okay. Well, maybe Paul, adding on this, if you build teams that are related to a certain task, I can imagine that depending on the task, you have different compositions. So how would do you have experience with that? How would you deal with that?
Yeah, what I like a lot about the Erasmus approach are actually two aspects. The autonomy part, that you really look at the autonomy of the professionals in relationship to teamwork. And the other thing is the different profiles, and you're referring to that as well. So in an ideal setting, the team is a composition of people with different profiles, where the starting point is the collective, as Tanya is saying, and it's exactly also what we're trying to do at Utrecht University, that the collective is the starting point, the strategy, the context, the choices you're making, the ambitions as a group that you have, as a team or as a department, and then define what kind of profiles, tasks, like Victor Beckers is talking about, you require to deliver the full ambitions of the collective. Now, and that raises all kind of challenges in terms of the composition of a team, but we might talk about that.
What I was referring to is not so much the composition and the diversity within the team, but let's say you have a team that's geared to a certain subject related to a university task. But some of these people in the team also have an entrepreneur goal that's only partly related to that first one, and they collaborate with other people. So they're also a member of other teams. So how do you deal with that then?
That's a good question. I think in our context, often most of us are part of multiple teams. So a sort of home basis is kind of would be nice, and often I think for a lot of people that is the disciplinary home basis. You're in Dutch we could call it a leerstoelgroep or something like that. That's where your home is in a way. But at the same time, you can be part of multiple teams. We are part of multiple teams, and we contribute to that. Now to incorporate that in our model, this is going to be one of the challenges, and there are places where we already adopt that in practice. We do so. So the home basis, where you can find your own professional identity, your own expertise, your own discipline, that makes sense, but there are multiple teams, and you're part of multiple teams, and that's actually quite fun. It's a challenge, but it can also be fun, because it could be part of a source of inspiration.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, Jaap, I have related to that another question, and I think it's a very difficult question, actually, because we concluded that you can be a member of various teams and you belong to a sort of a home base. The home base usually determines the flow of money within a university or whatever institution you're talking about. But then the teams have their various needs and will also require this money. So how can we organize that so that everyone is happy?
Yeah, I'm glad that you announced it as a complicated question to talk about the allocation of money. But I think that, just like Paul said, that you are a member of different teams. They have different budgets, different allocation systems. And I think it's important to assess whether we spend our money well. So you need tools to evaluate the output, the effort of a team. And then I think it's important to look both at the quality of the team in terms of process, in terms of supporting each other, in terms of helping each other, and at the same time also looking at the outcomes of a team in terms of performance. Do they deliver what they are supposed to do based on the objective of the team? And I myself, I'm working in many teams. And just like Paul said, it can also be a lot of fun. I'm missing in the whole talk of Victor the importance of humor. And then that it can be related to leadership. The leader is very responsible for the atmosphere within a team. And he or she can stimulate a lot to make sure that the people in a team feel safe. And that they also feel that they are being supported by the university, by the department or by the school. And then, of course, having enough funding for the work of a team is very important, because that's the most visible sign of being supported by your department, school or university.
Do you think that within a team everyone has the same contribution? So I'm referring to my old promoter who said in a football team, there is one Johan Cruyff. And there are people that have different positions. How do you view that? If you take one member of that team out, does that always have the same consequence? Is everyone as important in a team?
Yeah, of course, people differ in the qualities and what they bring to a group in terms of contribution. And some people can more easily be replaced than other people. That's totally true. But it's also very much dependent upon the leader of a group to cultivate and to enable the growing of the different talents within a team. I think that's very important. So a team is not only about contributing to a specific task or task domain, it's also about allowing people to develop and to grow in a team. And we really, at Tilburg University, we try to use teams as an enabling device for learning and development. Now, if that's your challenge, that requires a special kind of leadership.
And I think especially in the spirit of recognition and rewards, we can embrace the diversity. And this is again back to the leadership in teams. If we speak of academic business, let's say business in academia, it's teaching, research, valorization, entrepreneurial activities. These are basic activities, but also academic citizenship, behavior, committee work. And I would say a good, well-performing team is a team that has all talents, but at the individual level, every member of the team can excel in different domains, but together will be a great team.
Well, that sort of brings me to something I think, Paul, you already said it between the lines. How do you judge the quality of a team, the achievements of a team? How do you do that in Utrecht?
There is a challenge in itself to make it as an evaluation part, but there are good measures, I think, for what is the atmosphere. Jaap and Tanja are referring to that. We can actually ask people in an individual level, but also on a team level. You can ask supervisors, also colleagues, and not from a performance orientation, but from a developmental orientation. One of the things that strikes me in academia in comparison to other sectors is that we have very much focus on the outcomes, while you could also apply a developmental approach where the assessment is not so much on the outcomes that you generate, but on the process, as Jaap is referring to, that you see what kind of developmental. And we see some experiments already in Utrecht University, for example, where they apply a peer review on teams, and where after a project has been terminated or is finished, that they asked the different stakeholders or peers to do an assessment, but not on the outcomes, but on developmental aspects. So what could the person or the team learn from this experience, and how can you improve? That's an indirect approach where we assume that the development will lead to better performance in the future. That's a mind shift, I think. And the interesting thing is, we are in academia and development. We are in learning. That's the business.
We should apply it to ourselves.
We should apply it to ourselves. That's fascinating.
We have a group of people here with whom I'm going to have a discussion about international reputation and the international career prospects of young researchers. Would you like to just briefly introduce yourself in the round, Raymond?
I'm Raymond Poet. I'm from the Erasmus MC. I'm a biomedical scientist working on autism.
Thank you.
Rianne Letschert, co-chair of the national program and president of Maastricht University.
Thank you, Marcel.
Hello, Marcel Levy. I'm president of the Dutch Research Council, NWO.
And Megan?
Megan Pollock, a PhD candidate at LUMC and chair of PNN.
Thank you very much. And I'm Ineke Sluiter, president of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences, and I'm hosting this roundtable. Megan, could I start with you, with your first thoughts on this topic? It's one of the dilemmas in the Erkennen en Waarderen, the Recognitions and Rewards program.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to use this opportunity to start off with a statement. Our opinion as early career researchers is that the recognition and rewards movement, doesn't negatively influence the international career prospects of the early career researchers, but might actually benefit it. Also their lives. Recognition and rewards doesn't mean to move on from research or discharge it, but like actually look forward and more include normally extracurricular activities such as education and making an impact or leadership. As of course we all know that, but normally we're now used to be a jack of all trades and we have to do everything. And now in a team we can use the recognition and rewards to really diversify and strengthen your own talents. That's something that makes you a better person as well. And also, with the high burnout numbers, and of course also the high work pressure, really makes for a more attractive, international reputation, I think.
On the particular points that you have selected for your strengths.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Raymond?
Yeah, as a fly-in route, I would like to use the Knowledge Coalition. As you know, this is a very important organization in the Netherlands that advises the government and all the important organizations in there. Marcel is in there, and also Peter Duisenberg, yourself, you're in the KNW. They made a statement last year that they asked for money to the Dutch to basically fortify the Netherlands using more money for fundamental science and science in general. And that statement was full with excellence and rankings and international competitivity from the Netherlands towards outwards. And so that's of course one thing. Recognition awards was not in there, but it doesn't matter that much. But so the point there that they made is that they really wanted to basically make the Dutch future-proof. And we basically had a very good research strategy for that. I mean, the talk we will get to that later, but on research, NWO used to hand out grants to the best ideas selected by international criteria. These people that are often young scientists were then selected, and they could go to any university they wanted, but they do their thing, and the universities were happy to see them coming. And that system now is changing. I see different directions. There's more, the career development has now moved from NWO more to the universities. That's one aspect. But also at NWO and the universities, under guidance of recognition and rewards, many of these international criteria have been removed and been replaced by political criteria. And that, of course, makes the selection of the best scientists, whatever that may mean, we can probably get to that later, more difficult. And I feel that that's going to harm us internationally, because internationally we just need to be at our best and to have the best people and to have them having sufficient money. So there's a bit of a problem of how you're going to divide the new money, because the new money has come. And that's an important thing that maybe we can discuss here at this table.
Absolutely. Could I just ask, as a matter of clarification, political criteria, what do you mean by those?
Criteria that not necessarily contribute to better science in this sort of narrow sense of the word, in terms of impact and also scientific quality. That's what I mean by political.
I'm sure people will
we
want to...
We will probably get to that later.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is the one statement, we can diversify exactly what that means, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll explore all these issues later, but let's start with the opening statements again. Marcel?
Yeah, well, I think we started the day with our minister, Robert Dijkgraaf, who actually said research has become a global issue. And I think everybody will agree with that. And we're actually quite proud of it, because I think it's good for research that it is an international affair. So we cannot talk in the Netherlands in isolation about something like recognition and rewards. We need to look to the outside world, to other countries, what it means. If not, we're going to hurt ourselves, because then we cannot attract very nice researchers from other countries, and it will be more difficult for our young people to go to other countries as well. Interestingly, although there is a differences in speed between countries, I can't think of any country where recognition and rewards has not been put on the agenda lately. And again, the Netherlands may be a little bit ahead, although there are other countries that are even farther ahead. And there are some countries that are going a little bit slower. Mm-hmm. But I think it is on the agenda. But we have to take into account that the speed is not everywhere the same. And that may mean we may have to adapt ourselves a little bit if we are not going to hurt our position. But still, and I really like to emphasize that, we really want to have the best science and the best scientist. Full stop. The difficulty, though, is how do you determine what is the best scientist and what is the best science? And that's what this debate is all about. But it is, as far as I'm concerned, still about excellence, still about wanting to be the best. But then we can have a discussion is, what do you mean by the best?
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, I won't repeat what has been said, because that's always very boring. But what I see at different tables, both within the European Commission, within umbrella organizations such as the LERU, that discussions are taking place on the broad umbrella of recognition and reward. It's not only about what is good science there, it's about what you are saying, diversifying career paths and looking at strengths and talents of your staff members. And I think we all agree there. The main discussion is around the way that we assess excellent research. And that discussion also takes place in all these different fora, with also a LERU presenting a paper on ways to improve the way that we are now currently assessing our research. So I'm not so concerned that this is a Dutch debate, because that's what young generations sometimes say. It will harm my competitiveness if I want to move to the US or the UK. No, this is, as Marcel says, a broad discussion, and luckily like that, because it should remain an international affair. And for today, I think we need to discuss, or at least also distinguish, the broader ambitions of recognition and reward for universities, for research organizations, and the changes that we want to pursue, and how we do that in a way that we don't jeopardize the position of Dutch academia, because that's in no one's interest.
This is the concluding session for today, and it's all about leadership. As you might remember, in our first position paper, the consortium of parties that were involved said that leadership was one of the key pillars in recognition and rewards. Now, what is that leadership? And how should we shape it in terms of recognition and rewards? That is something that is asked, I think, pretty often in our steering committee, and also by people who contact us as a steering committee. We've got a number of very interesting people at this table who are all involved with leadership. So one of the things that we could ask today, and I think I'm going to ask that, is how has recognition and rewards shaped your leadership? And what do you think, perhaps as a second question, what do you think young people should show in terms of leadership? Perhaps, Marianne, I could start with you.
Well, I think recognition and reward is really a culture shift. It's a culture movement. And I've realized, partly because being a member of this steering committee, is that leading by example is very important here. So you should really live up to, practice as you preach.
Yeah.
And also stimulate other leaders in your organization to do the same thing. I've said it several occasions today. It's a chain, and if there is one person in that chain that is not leading by example, then all the people that look up to that person think, well, that's the standard.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's, for me, that's a very important element.
Leading the change.
Living by, practice what you preach, leading by example. Yes, and also, well, that's maybe not exactly related to the steering group, but more in general, there is not one way of leadership. There are many ways in which you can lead an organization, and we should be aware of that. We have a sort of implicit idea of what good leadership is, but by looking around, you see that there are many different styles that are successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think leadership is really very difficult. And I think we are very much underestimating how difficult it is. You have a often large group of people that all have different needs also in how they would like to be addressed, whether you're having formal leadership or informal leadership. So first of all, you need to reflect on your personal leadership, which is not often done, I think, at university. So we just expect everyone to be a good leader, whereas you yourself don't even know what you think should be good leadership, and you also don't ask input from people around you how they see you in your leadership role. And
self-reflection.
Self-reflection is important, and I think it's also important to give feedback on each other's behavior, which we do in academic writing very critically, and we know how to do that, but when we talk about behavior, we find it very difficult to give feedback, like you're actually crossing my borders, or what you're doing now, I actually don't find very helpful in my career path, or whatever topic that we find so difficult. And that's where it starts, to have an open dialogue on leadership. And I hope that the recognition and reward movement also creates that, an open, safe environment to discuss leadership, the difficulties in being a good leader. Also, I say that many times, deselect if you're in a leadership position and you're actually not really fit for that job, but you're a good academic or a good teacher, but not a good leader. We should have those discussions much more.
You don't have to be the department chair.
No, no. If you're not good in that, please do something else.
Yeah.
But we should also recognize that it takes time, and that it's not just something you do on top of all your other activities at a university, so that you can also develop in it.
Yeah. As president of the UNL, how is that for you? How can you show leadership to advance recognition and reward?
Now, first of all, I'm learning every day.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, what I'm learning is in the case of recognition and rewards is on the one hand is for example is listening and trying to grasp where the passion is, and then trying to give that a platform.
Yeah.
So that's actually what happened with recognition and rewards. We had there's a certain group of academic leaders, leaders of the universities, who have a passion for this movement.
Yeah.
And then my role is to sort of make it happen in the association, that all the universities join it, and that also other organizations join it. So, so that's the listening part. On the other hand, I'm personally very much result-oriented, so that's my learning opportunity. And so what I'm learning is in this movement every day, and also by feedback, I get that, is giving space and learning and trying to inspire others.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also looking for results.
Yeah.
And maybe letting it go and see where the results come in, and that's sort of a balance you have to strike.
Interesting. So listening, letting go are also very crucial elements of leadership. Frank, so for you as a rector, you must see a lot of stuff changing already in your university, in terms of recognition and rewards. What in your own leadership has advanced and has perhaps inhibited that development?
Well, I don't know. It's really about my own leadership. But I think what's happening in the university, at least the debate is happening. That's a good thing. Yeah. Clearly, because of COVID, things have slowed down a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we've been able to involve a lot of people in the discussion that we have, in the thinking. Because at the end of it, that's, I think, the cultural change. Because it has to get into the mind of people. It has to get into the attitude of people. So you can formalize lots of things and you can make nice documents, and obviously we try to do that. But that's only paper.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the change has to be with the people. And there I think it's really important that people take personal leadership at all levels. So it's not just with a dean or with a rector or with a department head or anything like that. It's really personal leadership that people demonstrate throughout the organization.
Yeah.
So I think leadership and leadership development in itself is a very important thing that we need to do.
Yeah.
Difficult, particularly in academia. And it's often neglected because there's so much focus on, say, the research, and hopefully now also significantly more in education. So there are quite a few people that are reluctant to develop leadership, personal leadership. But I think it's important for everyone. It starts as a student. You need to develop certain leadership skills, as a PhD candidate, and so forth.
Yeah.
At all levels, you need some sort of a leadership, personal leadership.
Yeah.
And I also think we need a kind of a change in the kind of leadership that we need. Not the power leadership, as you just, I think one of you described that, but more the person that really has the ability to engage others.
Exactly.
And is dedicated to the growth of people, rather than forcing all these things.
Connecting dots.
Connecting dots.